As a ground base of our lecture, we want to take a very famous tantric wisdom or quote that sort of gives a typical tantric attitude in the bedroom. And that sentence is, "My greatest happiness is the happiness of my beloved." So, welcome back everybody to our third installment of the lectures on Eros. Very happy to get the chance to talk about the subject, which is so juicy and complex and also highly spiritual. So it combines all the good stuff and makes for a wonderful exploration into the path of Tantra.
We will speak about one principle that has in its power like a revival of our inner world. So we live with, if we are honest with ourselves, with a good amount of social and sexual pain. There are very few people in this world that in the past year did not experience a good amount of self-made suffering related to either the social sphere or the sexual sphere. How we are wired and how the world is wired, it seemed to not match. There isn't so many people, I mean there are also people with eating disorders and so forth, but people don't experience normally as much direct pain related to food as they do regarding the social and sexual world. And if they have pains around food, at least in the more rich side of the world, it's normally food and the social and sexual world. It's not just food. So our inner world is conditioned, is wired in a particular way in which we constantly create suffering in the social and sexual spheres. We have a particular neediness, a particular expectation in this world. We need to get this amount of compliments, this amount of validation, to feel that we are needed, to feel that we are embraced, to have some kind of gratification, some kind of pleasure, some kind of physical contact. And when we don't get it our way, we ourselves create suffering. We press ourselves. When our agenda is not met, that person doesn't love me the way I want, I didn't get any compliment today, I didn't get any likes on Facebook today, let me create some suffering for myself. And when we are faced with this intense suffering, there are a few strategies. We can divide them in three main groups. One group, people that try to, that's the main one, you just try to have the outer world fit with your needs. I will find people, these guys, they don't compliment me enough, don't validate me enough. I will start to hang out with this person. He's validating and validating and validating me. Great. Or I force people to validate me, or I'm very nice to them and they validate me. I don't have enough sex like this, I go there and find sex over there. The social world and sexual world don't fit. I change some things in the outer world so that they fit my needs, and that's one strategy. Change the outer world to fit the inner needs, therefore suffer less, hopefully. This cannot work, as you know, on the long term. It cannot work forever because people change, people die, people leave you, people move, people something. It's not stable. If the conditioning stays the same, suffering will continue to come in different waves. The other strategy is avoiding. I will just start to ignore my sexual and social needs. I just porn and the two people that I trust, and that's it. That's just acceptable. And you try to somehow dry out inside, up to going and becoming a monk. Yeah, no sex life and very routinized social life without any big applause in your way. And then you try to dry out the needs. You suppress the needs. You pretend you don't have needs. You pretend you are conditioned in another way, and you kind of dry yourself up. You numb yourself up. That's the second strategy. First strategy was change the world so I don't suffer. The other one was numb myself or avoid the world so that I don't suffer. And these attitudes are known, and Tantra has a third and miraculous attitude, and that is you rewire. You so deeply rewire to such a degree that your whole erotic and social structures are erased and rebuilt. You destroy the temple and build it in 3 days or in 3 years. A very intense, loving couple work. So you can use, or let's say in the environment of a loving tantric couple, you create such an intensity, and following the principle that we will learn today, you follow that principle intensely, you erase the old conditionings and create something wonderful, some inner reality that can actually fit the world and not be in constant struggle with it. What's the principle? Blandine will tell us.
In this way, as you can hear, subject-wise, the lecture is tying in a little bit with the subject from last week where we spoke about suffering. As we are on the subject, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Also, if you are watching this, wherever you're watching this, give it a like. If there's some bells that you can hit to get notifications, please do that too. Anything possibly that you could do it. And if you want to comment, if you want to put questions, if you want to put suggestions for inspiring subjects in the future, please do that in the comments below as well. That being said, on our YouTube channel we are bringing out the lectures that we are doing here every Sunday, so stay tuned, and gradually you can watch back on the lecture on suffering that we did last week, and then also Eros 1 and 2 as they are gradually finding their way into the cyberspace. This being said, just to remind us what we were speaking about so far, we were establishing in the first lecture this ground-based assumption of Tantra, that our overall creative potential that is responsible for basically all our central ways and interactions and so forth can manifest in two ways. It can manifest in a downward flowing, instinctual, unconscious way. In that case would be referred to as the sexual energy, sexual drive, sexual tendency. Or it could manifest in an uplifting, upward going, conscious, loving way, which would determine what Tantra would call an erotic energy, the eros. So we will continuously distinct somehow between these two tendencies: sexual tendency, instinctual, unconscious, downward going; erotic tendency, rising, loving, conscious, uplifting, even enlightening. Now, typically we manifest a mix of the two, and the whole path of erotic Tantra is to eroticize basically your sex life and make it not anymore a sex life but an erotic life in time that will take out all sexual tendencies and be continuously on this loving, unifying, uplifting flow that leads upward. If you remember in that first lecture we put a very simple first question, and please feel invited, if you haven't answered that to yourself yet, to do that, to ask yourself what was your worst sexual experience and your best sexual experience, and why they were the worst and the best. What made them the worst and what made them the best. And like that you will already very intuitively find out what are the sexual and erotic tendencies typically. For most people, not such a good sexual experience would usually be that you're a little bit off in rhythm, that you're not really present to each other, that there's a lack of love, a lack of care, that there's not a real connection, and so forth. Whereas typically the best erotic experiences ever, they are usually determined by feeling unified, feeling that you're in a rhythm, feeling really attracted to one another, feeling that there's a ton of love, feeling that you even expand somehow beyond just the two of you. So there could be all sorts of interesting things that you already have naturally experienced that make up for a wonderful erotic experience. In the first lecture we talked about the feminine gift, which we would in Tantra basically refer to as the grace of Shakti, which is coming or becoming manifest typically through the woman, but also through the two lovers, in the correct conditions. And we were speaking about somehow the conditions that need to be created in order to access this grace of Shakti. And in the second lecture last time, we were speaking about this particular difference between having let's say, sexual automatism, which can feel like a flow, but it is more like falling into some sort of instinctual, one thing comes after the other, versus an erotic flow or even erotic trance that we might enter when we go on the upward guiding escalator. And we were somehow underlining how the tantric would aim to continuously reattune to the erotic flow and to sort of, first of all, recognize it inside, understand how does it look like, seeing it in the lovemaking, then aiming to recreate it when you're by yourself in nature, just feeling it, feeling that erotic flow, that contact, that connectivity between you and the world, and then bringing it consciously into the bedroom as you are with your beloved. Now, somehow we will continue bringing more and more building blocks. So please don't forget the things that we spoke about, even if what we are telling you now sort of also stands for itself. It makes the most sense when you see it in context, of course. Now, the point that we want to refer to today is basically about needs and desires, and about addressing the needs and desires of our beloved. And as a ground base of our lecture, we want to take a very famous tantric wisdom or quote that sort of gives a typical tantric attitude in the bedroom. And that sentence, that motto, if you will, is, "My greatest happiness is the happiness of my beloved." And if you have been in any of our eroticism related lectures or retreats, then for sure you've heard this before. The happiness of my beloved is my greatest happiness. So this is a classic tantric sentence. And as much as it is a classic tantric sentence, we all do have an ego that makes a great job in hijacking these classic tantric sentences and then twisting them into all sorts of weird things that have nothing to do with the essential message of it. So we want to take some time and look into how this sentence could be possibly twisted, and how would it manifest if it is actually, let's say, really understood from the level of the soul, and therefore will lead us onto that upward lifting energy of Eros. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.